there are many first-generation suburbs, especially the ones which started along transportation corridors, whether they're railroads or streetcar lines, which are still a benevolent, walkable, sustainable urbanism, with mixed uses. People couldn't walk, much further away from their train station or streetcar stop or whatever. So basically, a kind of the neighborhood structure, the walkability of the pedestrian shed was preserved. And today, Steve gave me a brief tour of Albany and some of your first ring neighborhoods, like Del Mar, was developed along one of the trolley lines. So these first places, you still see that the fabric is much more humane, if you wish, with the sidewalks, with the mix of uses, with the housing, with a fairly wide range of housing. So examples like, for example, here I'm showing the Forest Hills in Queens, New York. It's a suburb which is still good urbanism. The change actually happened post-war with the second generation of suburbs. Probably Levittown is kind of the preeminent example. It was kind of the first second generation post-war suburb, where the car became the predominant tool for moving around, and basically then the neighborhood structure became became obsolete. The distances didn't matter anymore. Things could be very far away from each other, because every family actually had to have a car in Levittown. It came with the dream for the single family house on a small plot, but also it came always with a necessity for a car. So this is when basically everything changed. And then the third generation suburbs, or the exurbs, the so-called exurbs, which were kind of the latest generation in the 80s and the 2000s. These are kind of the latest state-of-the-art suburbs. Until very recently, we thought that they are invincible. Some of the high concentrations of commercial development in the so-called edge cities. Some of the more glitzy and very well managed suburban communities, large gated residential developments are in this category. But this actually, in the recent meltdown, actually some of these exurban developments were very highly affected. Many foreclosures. Most of the foreclosures actually happened in the exurbs. If you look at the statistics from California, Florida, even North Carolina. And it's very interesting actually that this type of development continues even today. So there is certain urgency to do something, or to basically show different ideas to developers and to municipalities and say, look, let's not do what, for example, Las Vegas is doing right now. I read somewhere in the newspaper a month or two ago that they are still developing, kind of sprawl outside of the city in the far-fetched fringes, because they're saying, well, it's cheaper. It doesn't matter what's happening and what will be in the future. It's right now we can still sell these houses, and it's cheaper for us to build them this way. So the sprawl repair method actually always needs to start at the kind of the regional, the bigger picture, and to be different from the sprawling ways, which in recent years were, first in the beginning it was a kind of more or less like a federal policy, with the building construction of the interstate system, and with some of the federal tax alleviations, with the depreciation, with accelerated depreciation, and many other incentives. Today, actually, we need to think about sprawl repair more comprehensively and start from the bigger picture. Here, within this regional map, you can see that the red dots show how we have to identify nodes within the sprawling suburbs where we can interfere. It will not be easy to do everything. It's not going to be even possible. So it will be only in special places we'll have the opportunities where location at good intersections, or places where they have a potential for future transit, this can happen, where there are like clusters or concentrations of employment in commercial activity. So these will be the places which are salvageable. And in your picture you can see that the red color shows also in the urban core, which also needs repair, but also the dots around, the red dots around, which ideally will be connected with transportation, with public transportation networks. And then there will be some sprawl development which will be left as is. Some of it will be probably reverting to agriculture, and there are many initiatives all around the country already called shrinking cities and other ways of calling this phenomenon, when basically big portions of these sprawling developments will be either left to revert to nature or will be converted into agricultural land. So these are the kind of the things which we need to think about. The possible ways of sprawl repair, they can be very ambitious. They can be in one shot. Here we're showing a residential development, and I will show it later in a little bit more detail. A residential development, which is a single-use, a single-family development, and how it is basically repaired into a mixed-use, walkable neighborhood center, which will serve a kind of a larger suburban area. And this diagram shows three different ways of how you can achieve it. It can be in one shot if the momentum is right, if there is a developer, if there is funding, all of that. And this way is kind of more or less in the past. But there will be also ways you can do that with different phasing, with different steps, where you can start with something small, maybe converting some single-family houses into multi-family housing or senior housing, and I'll show you some of these techniques. And then another one when you have a kind of more circuitous, the third method, which is on the top of your screen, which is basically by trial, and you try and then you move forward, making sometimes mistakes, going back and forth, and then progression. The more indirect process. This is a very simple diagram showing quantitative comparison of urban indicators before and after sprawl repair. And it shows that in all cases, some of the most important indicators as infrastructure and thoroughfare length and surface is reduced when a single-use sprawl development is repaired. And how it is repaired is, of course, with higher density, actually less infrastructure, less energy, less land use per capita. So I forgot to say that in the previous diagram, you can see that on the horizontal axis we have the quality of life. In all cases, we assume that the quality of life, will be better because it will be more walkable. So the older, the younger will be served much better, and everybody will have the possibility of doing different things in their neighborhoods and not drive to everything. And the vertical axis actually shows that in terms of infrastructure, resources, energy consumption per capita actually goes down. And this is proven with some very simple calculations, which actually can be backed. And this will be kind of a next study which we'll be doing by studies and calculating carbon footprints of both, kind of the sprawl development and the new redeveloped, repaired neighborhood. And these are the two models for complete communities and the sprawl communities, and what the differences are. This is kind of the more traditional model. This happens to be a community in England, I believe, where you can see this, and our model is very, very similar, where we have the neighborhoods are delineated and are based on a kind of a walkability pedestrian shed, from its center to the edge. It's only 5-minute walk. In the center you have just your basic needs, maybe a school or a daycare. The school usually happens between two neighborhoods. They're very well connected, very fine grain of urbanism, so multiple choices for drivers. You can see also the delineation of natural zone, of the natural corridors are amenities for everybody, while in the second model, which is kind of the incomplete type of community, the neighborhood structure is missing, the public space is kind of unidentified, undefined, and in most cases in people's backyards. you can see that the neighborhood structure and the pedestrian shed is entirely missing. The connectivity is sparse, and this is actually the model which is legal today, and the previous model is the illegal one. That's why we will need not only great urban design technology, kind of as planners, or urban designers, we really appreciate the kind of the intricacies, sophistication of good urban design, but we'll need to look also at regulatory technology. We need to change our codes, and luckily, this is the good news is that in many places all around the country, many municipalities have been thinking about the so-called form-based codes when just the pure land use zoning is replaced with a form-based zoning, where how the buildings shape the public space becomes central, and not what type of uses actually are within the zoning. You can see on the upper drawing an attempt to kind of summarize or to make like a section through sprawl, and you can see the different, the different sprawl elements, from rural sprawl to a single-family subdivision to multi-family subdivisions to commercial, shopping centers, etc., all the way to the edge city with its very high intensity of use. And these elements are very fragmented, they're not connected, and they're single-use and entirely out-oriented. While the drawing below actually shows the complexity of human habitat in kind of a traditional environment, in traditional neighborhood. We use in the sprawl repair method is actually closely linked or kind of based on a methodology which we have been using in the past decades called the transect. And I talked briefly with one of the students this afternoon about how, and he's an environmental scientist, environmental sciences student, I believe, how basically ecologists and environmental scientists, they do sections through nature, showing basically different habitats, and how we as planners extended these sections through nature all the way through the human habitat, and basically including a kind of a continuum from pure nature through the rural places of human settlements all the way to the very urban places. So this is a kind of an ordering system, how to fit within all the elements of urban planning within some kind of ordering continuum, and being able to apply some of these principles to sprawl, which will be kind of very challenging. As you can see here, the different T-zones or transit zones on the lower drawing shows a variety of building types, a variety of things happening within these environments, while above it's only one. So there's a kind of not a direct correlation. So in many cases, what we'll need to do is to upzone some of the sprawling areas, some of the to be able to include commercial uses in the single-family residence.